Welcome into College Football Smothered and Covered. My name is Barrett Sallee. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. If you're new here, this is a revamped edition of SEC Smothered and Covered, which was very successful from 2016 to 2018. It was forced to halt for reasons that I'm still not happy about. What we rebroadcast it, we rebranded it. It's back. It's a national college football show, and we are excited to be here. Still the early stages of the show, but we have a lot of great things planned for you, especially today, because my good friend, my partner on SiriusXM, Tom Luginbill, will be along. We'll talk about everything. Tom's a great guy. We'll screw around for about 20 minutes because that's what we do. That's essentially what we do for 3 hours every Sunday during the fall. So we're going to do it in the spring. So why not? We'll also talk about the NCAA settlement and what it means moving forward for the future of college athletics. Of course, that came to a conclusion last night when all of the conferences agreed to a settlement. But first, before we get into all of that content, please subscribe, please share, do everything you can to spread the word about college football smothered and covered, because we want you to consider us part of your college football new media rotation. And so please subscribe, share, all of that stuff. Hey, leave a review too. If you don't like the show, if you do like the show, let us know. This show brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for NBA and NHL playoff content this summer. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds up there on BetOnline. When the game's over, head over to the online casino where you get a game of blackjack, poker, anything you want. You can also hit those slot machines as well. Go to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, and you will get 50%, a welcome bonus on your first deposit. BLEAV, you'll get 50% on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. It's also a new era starting in the world of college athletics. And this is from my friend Trey Wallace over at Outkick, my colleague. And the headline is this: historic NCAA settlement approved by all conferences. With the wrinkle, college athletics headed to a new era. And you can read that full thing over at Outkick. And for those who missed it late Thursday night, all the conferences agreed to a settlement that pays players, current players and former players back 10 years or so, a lump sum of money. It's a massive payout. But that's not the most important thing. Look, I love that they did that, but honestly, that was going to happen anyway. Don't really care. What I do care about is the future of college athletics. And if you've listened to the show, if you've watched the show, you know my opinion on all of this legislative stuff. I'm like Jonathan Moxon in Varsity Blues when he's talking to his dad about the Gilroy game. And he says, tell me who wins. Because he doesn't really understand, doesn't really care the process. It's just whatever. And I care, but the nuts and bolts of this is one of those things where, you kind of have to ride the waves. And I've done it for 20 years. And just tell me what the future is. And we got a glimpse of the future, because what we're going to have, what this clears the way for, is basically revenue sharing for schools, $15 to $20 million per year. And more or less, it treats it like professional athletics. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because players are getting what they deserve. And I know old school fans say, oh, whatever, scholarships, all this stuff. Yeah, I get it. Like, I did a story a long time ago on when I was still working at Bleacher Reports. Those were probably 10 years ago, where I calculated what the true value of an actual scholarship is at a couple schools. I think it did LSU. I think it did Georgia, a couple others. And it's something like $250,000, which is huge. But they deserve more. And so what you're going to see is a payment structure that creates, in theory, some parity. And I think most importantly, though, it lays the groundwork for the future. Now, there's still going to be lawsuits because billable hours are undefeated. So we will see those. But now we know where we're headed. But my thoughts on this are kind of twofold. One, yeah, great. We're going to have a payment structure. It's what Nick Saban talked about a month ago or so. It's what a lot of other coaches that I've spoken with really, really want, and they've said it publicly and also privately. But here's the thing, and I need y'all to understand what this will actually do to college athletics. Before, the pendulum was here, high up on the left side. And it was everything's been done under the table. All of the payments are being done under the table. And so when name, image, and likeness became a thing, the pendulum swung all the way to the other side, to the right side, where you had collectives basically paying players whatever they wanted. And then after the Tennessee, Virginia legal ruling, free for all, everybody pay whatever they want, right? So what's happened now with this ruling is the pendulum is now coming back, and it's right in the middle. And the middle is interesting because it's not necessarily as structured as I think people are going to believe. Now, yes, you will have schools abiding by the $15 to $20 million number, but you're also going to have schools cheating to supplement that salary cap, so to speak. So I think it's a little naive for people to say, hey, look, it's going to be exactly like the NFL or Major League Baseball, where everybody's going to abide by the rules. No. If you're an SEC school, if you're a Big Ten school, you've got money all over the place. So are collectives, are boosters still to go buy players and just not report it? Absolutely they are. 100% they are. But they're not going to do it as much. And ultimately, I think that's what's going on here, is the NCAA didn't want all hell to break loose even further than it already has. Schools didn't want that either, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of confusion. The NCAA doesn't want everybody paying everybody under the table, because that doesn't accomplish anything either, and essentially would put the NCAA out of business. But schools didn't want that either, because it's just a lot of hassle to deal with. So what we have is they met in the middle, and we're going to have a pretty decent structure with some shady stuff going on underneath. And that's fine. That's fine, because it happens everywhere. It happens in every sport. Look at the tampering thing with the Falcons, with Kirk Cousins. It's going to happen. But it's a good day. It's a good day in college athletics, because finally the NCAA came to the table and realized, and I'm talking about the conferences as well, realized that all parties need to have a view of the future, a blueprint for the future. And this could have been avoided 10 years ago if we'd have all figured out and come together and had this exact structure laid out in front of us, but the NCAA dug its heels in. Finally, we're here, and that's a good thing. You hear us essentially every Sunday during the college football season, so we figured we'd catch up here in late May. Tom Luginbill joining us here on the show. Mr. Luginbill, I miss you. What's going on?
I miss you too. I miss you too, man. I'm like, all right, when we get back on Sundays, when we get to start talking some ball, when are we going to start getting together and having a new Michigan segment? Like we got to come up with a new Michigan. Like Harbaugh totally screwed
the Sharon Moore segment.
No, we can't do that to him yet, because he hasn't showed us anything to create a segment. But
It's
Harbaugh
true.
Totally screwed us, because he turned the whole thing around, and then we didn't have a segment anymore.
It was very rude of him to do that. I mean, it was great radio. For those who don't know, before Harbaugh became a good college head coach, we just ripped him for 15 minutes, at least once per show. And it was great radio, right?
Yeah.
It was great content. Michigan fans would get all pissed off at us and call in, and then we'd yell at them because they were idiots. And then they proved us wrong, because Harbaugh actually won a national championship.
I know. He turned it around. Good for him. So that eliminated our Michigan segment. So now we're going to have to come up with a new segment. I guarantee you somebody will emerge this fall, Barrett.
Billy Napier? You think? But see, Billy Napier, like they don't love him. They didn't really love him going in. We got to find somebody like Ryan Day, because Ohio State fans.
They push all their chips to the table.
They do
all the table. That's right.
Remember, like back in the day, this is 2-3 years ago. Tom, you and I would like lose content for the summer. Like it'd be like mid-July or early July and there'd be nothing going on. So we'd basically say that Ohio State sucks and Ohio State fans would call for 3 hours. It was great.
Yeah. Remember when we did our most obnoxious fan bases and then everyone we listed all called in and proved it?
That's exactly right. just like tossing out that reel, right? Tossing out that lure and you're like, just reel them all in. Reeling them all in. Oh, man. I need you back on the show. I love Jeff, but
we'll be back soon. We'll be back soon.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Different conversation. Conversation. Hey, Quaid went to college today.
Yeah. About
your
15
son's
minutes
off
ago.
Eastern Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky is in the summer session. He just got his workout schedule and his study hall schedule. And like, he's about to enter into an entirely different world. We're so excited for him, but like, and you have younger children, and when everybody always tells you, "Oh, it goes fast, man, it goes fast," and you blow it off, right? You're like, whatever. And then in the blink of an eyebrow, he's driving out of the driveway. It was crazy this morning. Yeah, Mama has to drive back by herself. I have a UFL game.
Oh man,
so I can't help move in. So she's got to make like that 6-hour drive back home by herself, man. Oh boy, that's
going to be emotional.
It is going to be emotional, man. But no,
we're happy
for
she's
him.
Going to be able to handle that. I don't know if she's going to be able to handle that.
She'll stop at a Buc-ee's on the way. It'll make her feel better.
That's true. Well, that's all.
Buc-ee's makes everybody feel better.
I was going to say it makes everybody. It's Buc-ee's. If you're listening, sponsorship opportunities. Come on, bring them on.
That's right.
Always on for a Buc-ee's sponsorship, especially if they give me free stuff. You know what? We could do a segment on Deion Sanders this fall because let's write that down in pencil. It's going to be the Deion Sanders segment.
That tends to get me in trouble.
How's that going to get you in trouble?
No, I said it tends to get me in trouble because here's what I don't understand about that whole thing. Why is it that he's immune and protected and that program is immune and protected from any scrutiny, any criticism, any analysis that doesn't pat them on the back and tell them how great they are? I've never seen a scenario like theirs where the moment you point something out that could be totally factual, like, no, you can't say that. You can't say that's Colorado. That's Coach Prime. You can't do that. I don't understand this whole world they're living in.
Well, I think that part of it is because Deion's, Hall of Famer, right?
Sure.
It's just like he's a Hall of Famer. Like a lot of folks are like, it has to, especially NFL folks are like, this has to work. This has to work because the NFL is like far superior in their minds to college football. That's my theory. It might be a dumb theory, but I'm dumb. So there's that. It's funny though with Colorado, and I don't know if you feel this way, but everyone's like, oh, everybody left. It's a disaster. Deion, is just running folks off. And I'm like, y'all, he told you he was going to run folks off, and they sucked last year. Like he could be running people off for a good reason because like he got offensive linemen in and they didn't have any of those last year. Yeah. So it might not be the worst thing in the world. Even if they go 3-9 or 4-8, it's like, look, if you're Colorado, consistency is fine. Even if it's mediocre
consistently 3-9, is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, what would the alternative be? 1-11?
Well, it's interesting you bring this up because people have completely glossed over this one little detail that may save him. And that is, had the court system not allowed unlimited transfers, he would have been stuck with all of those guys he brought in. And he would have had to have played with them because they couldn't transfer again.
Yep.
So that ruling put them in a position. Now, I'm still of the belief. We could talk all we want about Travis Hunter, elite player. Talk all we want about Shedeur Sanders, potentially an elite player. I still think he's got to clean some things up. Sure. And they've got some wideouts. All right. They went out and got the running back from Ohio State. But they're going to have to prove to me they're significantly better in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Just because you have movement doesn't mean you're going forward. Doesn't mean you're progressing. So what they've shuffled out the door and shuffled in, we don't know yet if they're any better. Like we don't like Jordan Seaton's a true freshman.
Worse on the offensive line, right?
I don't think they could be worse, but I'll say this. And I think if Shedeur Sanders was being honest with himself and he was doing a self-critique on areas he's got to improve, oftentimes he was as responsible for sacks as the offensive line was.
He's holding
Just
the ball too long.
Holding on to the football. And I understand he's trying to make that last-ditch effort, that last-ditch play, but he can help himself out. He can help the offensive line out. And I think that's what the NFL is looking to see with him is, has he improved his anticipation, his decisiveness, his willingness to get rid of the football? Because that stuff's not flying in the NFL. You'd be out of the league in a half a year if you're holding on to the ball like that. So I'm going to be very interested to see if the new shuffle of guys coming in, yes, there's movement, but is there progress? Because those two things aren't the same. And so I'm interested to see how that plays out. And Barrett, dude, the schedule's brutal.
It's so bad.
It's a rough schedule. Their road contests are really difficult. So it's going to be great. I mean, listen, it's must-watch television for college football. It was last year. It will be this year. But they're going to have to start seeing results, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt. And look, I think they will take a little bit of a step forward this year. I think they can't be worse offensively from the offensive line standpoint. And Dylan Edwards, I think, was a little bit overrated, but he will help at Kansas State. And that brings me to the next point. You and I on the radio all summer last year going into the season were like, the Big 12 the Pac-12 is going to be awesome. Not necessarily in terms of top end, but obviously we were wrong because Washington was obviously very, very good. We were like, this is going to be the most interesting conference in all of America. And I'm saying the same exact thing about the Big 12 this year because I've convinced myself. This is how much I've gone in a circle. I've convinced myself that Oklahoma State was going to win it. I've convinced myself that Utah is going to win it. I've convinced myself that Kansas State's going to win it. I've almost convinced myself that Kansas is going to win it. So finally, I'm sitting here. I'm about to go to Memorial Day weekend, and we don't have magazines yet because no one knows what the rosters are going to be until the middle of May. But I'm sitting here going to Memorial Day weekend, and I'm throwing my hands up like I have no freaking clue what's going to happen in the Big 12.
That's what's going to make every single week phenomenal. Just look at the quarterbacks, dude. Cam Rising, Noah Fafita. The best one in the entire conference might be West Virginia's Garrett Green.
I've convinced myself of them, too. I've convinced myself. West Virginia. Dude, let me tell you, they are plus like 4,000 to win that conference.
Yeah, I know. And so the quarterback play looks like the Pac-12 did last year. So I'm not even done yet. You got Avery Johnson at Kansas State, who looks like he's on the cusp of being a star. If Jalen Daniels stays healthy at Kansas, which he hasn't yet, but if he does, I'm with you. They could win the conference. Like, they're good enough, right? So Oklahoma State's got the journeyman and Alan Bowman, who played lights out last year. All right.
Ollie Gordon.
And Ollie Gordon. Oklahoma State has like everybody back. So the margin of error in that league is going to be so slim. And not to bring things back to Colorado, but like that's what puts even more pressure on Colorado. Yeah. Because everybody's good. All of the teams that are supposed to be good have a quarterback. If Baron Morton stays healthy at Texas Tech, they're going to be pretty good. It is going to be so much fun to watch that conference week in and week out. I mean, we might have one of those like 48-45s, 52-50, 38-35, like multiple games like that every single weekend in the Big 12.
And, I compared it to 2 years ago. TCU obviously went to the national championship game, but you remember that month of October where TCU was in like a last second game every single week. They had to rush out the field goal team with no time on the clock to beat Baylor. I mean, it was just wild. The entire conference was, and I'm like, I don't know if a team's going to come out like TCU did 2 years ago, but it is going to be exactly like that. I mean, it is going to be awesome.
And what TCU did is they won one possession games, right? And they won on the road. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's it. That was their entire season. And you know what? This past year, it was the exact opposite of that. They couldn't win a one possession game. They couldn't win on the road. I mean, so it's so hard to carry that stuff over. But no, I'm here for it, dude. I'm totally with you. I think it's going to be awesome.
It is going to be fantastic. Now, what is going to be also fantastic is I would say, rude awakening that USC is going to get in the Big Ten. And I'm not the biggest odds guy. Well, I am now because it's content, but whatever. The top 4 in the Big Ten, like it's Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. I'm not buying Penn State, and Michigan. And then the drop down to USC is like monumental, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you know what? Lincoln Riley segment. That's what we're doing.
That's
Lincoln
it.
Riley segment. That's
dunk.
it. It's natural. It's natural.
It will all be based on defense. The whole
thing will be based on defense.
Defense.
The whole
exactly.
thing.
You just nailed it. That's it. Put that in ink.
I'm retiring. I'm done until August. Well, I'm done until August. Different story. All right.
We'll be back.
I'm sidetracked. But okay, does Lincoln Riley coach defense? Like, does he know how to do that yet? Because I don't think he does.
Well, and it's not just that question. Is does he care about it? Is he invested in it?
That's the biggest thing.
Yes. Is it important that they are a good football team on that side of the ball? Secondly, and actually it should be primarily, do they have better players? Like, have their players got any better? I mean, that's the biggest thing. No, exactly. Not that we've seen yet. And then, of course, like, is Miller Moss going to play like he did in the Holiday Bowl every week? Like,
see, I think that's the Joe Milton factor. Like, to me, the Miller Moss thing is like the Joe Milton factor this year. He's this year's version of Joe Milton.
That's a good call, man. And now they're going to go into cold weather climates, cold weather elements. They're going to be on a 3-hour time. See, the 3-hour time change is easy going west.
Yep.
It's a different animal going east. And they're always going east. Always.
Yep.
Right? So when teams come to play them, it's not going to be that big of a deal or an adjustment for that team. So I don't know, man. That's the segment for College Sports Sunday on SiriusXM Channel 84 every Sunday this fall. You're right. I think that's it. And by the way, have you seen their schedule?
It's not good.
Notre Dame, LSU, UCLA, the rest of the Big Ten. Stop it. Oh,
it's not good. That LSU game, incidentally, on Sunday night. See, I talked about this on the show, and this is my plan since I'm my own boss because I run the company. The noon game in Atlanta, and you won't know your schedule. The noon game in Atlanta is Clemson, Georgia.
Yeah.
Fly to Vegas that night. Do the show with you at 3 in the morning. I'm sorry, at 6 in the morning.
6 in the morning.
6 in the morning. Go play craps all day.
Yes.
I have a few cocktails because, again, I can do that. I'm not going to fire myself.
Come home rich.
And then go to USC, LSU that night in the giant Roomba at Allegiant Stadium.
That's awesome. Very well done.
And then, you know what? Red eye home that night.
See, isn't it nice being the boss?
It's
awesome. Boss of you. You being the boss of you is very nice.
It is. And, there's not many. Well, I'm not the total boss. I mean, Nancy kind of runs things.
Oh, well, that's right. She's management and you're labor.
Well, yes, exactly. And if you ask Samantha and Tripp, that's they run things too and act like it. Act like it a lot of times. All right. Kalen DeBoer, last thing. What? There's no path for this, right? I think anybody who tells you what Alabama is going to do this year is lying. Like they are flat out lying. There's nothing to sort of base this on because no one's ever replaced the best coach of all time, other than Bear. Well, and even with Bear Bryant, it was different. Is 9-3 okay? I mean, to me, I think 9-3 would be okay, or at least acceptable in year one.
Yes, I think it is, but I think they'll actually be better than that. And I say that because Kalen DeBoer has proven that everywhere he's been. Yeah. Everywhere. Like, there could not have probably been a better option to take this job than that guy at this time.
Yeah.
And again, it's the old adage, you don't want to follow the guy. You want to follow the guy that follows the guy, right? But somebody had to do it. So why would you not go out and get a guy in Kalen DeBoer that has developed and built programs and won almost instantly every single place he's been, and you hire him at a place that's expecting you to win instantly? Like, it couldn't have been a better match. And, what I'm going to be very interested to watch, because I think this is going to be a big component to this, is the best attribute that Jalen Milroe has, aside from his legs, is throwing the deep ball. What does Kalen DeBoer love to do?
The exact same thing.
The problem is, I think one of his biggest deficiencies is the short and intermediate game. He is not Michael Penix. And so where's the drop-off in the passing game? Where's it going to come? It's going to come somewhere. When I say drop-off from what we saw at Washington the last 2-3 years to Alabama. Where is that?
And they don't have a Rome Odunze.
No, but there might have one by the middle of the season named Ryan Williams.
Could be, yes.
That cat reminds me so much of what Amari Cooper was like when he was a true freshman at Alabama. Similar traits, similar maturity. So they may have one. They'll be better at running back than Washington was. The offensive line, I think, is going to be fine. They will have been matured. And they're going to have better players on defense than they ever had at Washington. So, I don't know, man. I think, is 9-3 acceptable? Yes. Should they probably be 10-2, depending on the development of Jalen Milroe? Probably. And again, so much of this is like Auburn's putting all of their eggs in the Peyton Thorne basket, which is odd to me. Which is really odd to me.
So
we don't know how much better are they going to be. I think LSU is going to be much better, but they still got a ways to go on defense. Ole Miss has done exactly what Ohio State's done, and they're trying to put themselves in the mix through the transfer portal. But they still have got to prove that they've got to beat the likes of an Alabama, a Georgia. Like, they can beat everybody else, but in order to get to Atlanta, you have to beat those other teams, right?
Yep.
That's what they haven't done yet. So that puts Alabama, I think, in a great position to still be the hunted.
It'll be interesting. Tom, we're going to be kindred spirits for the entire summer, even though we're not going to be doing College Sports Sunday together. We will be spending time at different lakes, and I'm sure texting each other pictures and texting each other pictures of ice-cold domestic beers on boats.
Yes,
because
right. and birds.
That's what we end up. That's what we do. That's pretty much all we do. Bye, Tom.
Bye, Barrett. See you later.
That will do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show. Reminder, this show brought to you by BetOnline. The game starts now. Go to BetOnline. They got all your player props, lines, all that stuff. You can stop by the online casino. They've got everything there. And what we have is a Memorial Day weekend coming up. So please thank everybody who has defended this country and honor those on Memorial Day, not just on Monday, but also throughout Memorial Day weekend. We will have a weekend feast as well coming up for you to listen to while you're at the pool, on the boat, whatever. So look out for that. Until the next show, which will probably be on Tuesday, have a great holiday weekend.